This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Monday, November 7th, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From Reuters, COP27 kicks off with deal to discuss climate compensation. Yesterday marked the first day of the COP27 United Nations Climate Summit, and it got started with an agreement to hold a discussion about wealthy nations maybe financially compensating poorer nations for the damage they are suffering and will suffer as a consequence of human-amplified climate change. An agreement to hold a discussion about something is arguably not much of an agreement, so some parties are less than thrilled about this minor initial victory. It is, however, still being seen as a victory, and some of the world's most impacted poorer nations are optimistic about this agreement, seeing it as a step in the right direction after years of stonewalling and outright refusals by some nations most responsible for the variables fueling climate change, to even discuss the possibility of compensating the nations that are suffering the most from the consequent environmental impacts. From Ars Technica, SpaceX is now building a Raptor engine a day, NASA says. Private US-based space company SpaceX has refined its manufacturing process so that it's now able to produce 7 Raptor 2 rocket engines each week. That's a big accomplishment and vital to NASA's return humans to the moon ambitions, because SpaceX's Starship spacecraft is meant to play a fundamental role in getting both human beings and a bunch of stuff, enough to set up a permanent base onto the moon in the relatively near future. Each Starship vessel is absolutely massive and requires 33 Raptor 2 engines to power its first stage booster, and 6 more for use on the upper stage of the craft. The concern up till this point was that the company wouldn't be able to make enough of these engines to iterate the overall design fast enough to meet NASA's reliability goals, but it would seem that specific concern is no longer warranted. And from Politico, Greece's spyware scandal expands further. More than 30 people in Greece have been shown to have illegal predator spyware on their devices, among them members of the government, including the country's finance, foreign, labor, and tourism ministers, their spouses, journalists, and business people. This is just the most recent twist in an ongoing spyware scandal in Greece, the larger narrative suggesting that the nation's prime minister has been using this spyware to essentially tap the devices of his perceived enemies, an allegation that stems from an earlier scandal during which the prime minister admitted to using state surveillance tools to tap the opposition leader's phone. The Prime Minister and Greek government both deny purchasing or using illegal spyware, but security analysts point out that governments that have been proven to have used similar tools, like the now infamous Pegasus spyware, to spy on their opponents, critics, and exes, have almost always said the same. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com, and you can support this and other related projects like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.